Okay, mic check, mic check. A little high. Back it up just a bit. All right, I think that's going to work. Cool. Okay, we'll be live in just about 3 minutes. Okay, everyone, good evening. What we're going to do tonight is take a look at changing the colors of the autumn pictures that I got. Now, as you can see here, there's quite a difference between these two. It was not the sunniest of days. The colors in this area have been muted for the last several days. I'm just noticing around the house now that I've got some very, very bright yellow leaves on plants, but it's almost all yellow at this point, but they're a bright golden yellow color, so I have to get some of those. But let's talk about what we're going to do here. Now, let me start off with the fact that there is a company called Lens Rental, which allows you to go and get lenses. If you've seen the other two videos that I did about lens pricing, you'll know that several of the lenses are very expensive, but at Lens Rental, you can go get them at a discount. This is not a sponsored video, but I like the company, and I'll include a link on the page to get you guys $25 off if you use the link. Basically, what I grabbed was the 100 to 400 RF that you can see highlighted up at the top here in the little description. I was all the way at 100. I had taken it to go take distance pictures. This was from across the street at 100. You can see how close it looks. But let's take a look here at the image. Now, an important thing to know when you're retouching images is you don't want to lose detail. So the XY is a wonderful way in Lightroom to take a look at two images. And if you click on it and pull it up, you can see that you've got two identical images. And you can see that I've got as much detail in the enhanced retouched image as I do in the original. So let's go and take a look at this image and we'll start working on it. Now, because it was an overcast day, I'm going to want to bring the exposure up a bit. However, I like to do contrast in my images. And when you bring in more contrast, it has a tendency, as you can see, it darkens certain parts of the image. So I'm going to pull that up to about 56. I'm going to roll that exposure up just a bit so it looks a little bit brighter. Now, when it comes to color, vibrance and saturation are what you're going to be looking for. Depending on what you're doing, here everything is in need of enhancement. So rather than doing just vibrance, I think I'm just going to bring the saturation up a bit. And see how that looks? And we can actually go back and do a comparison of the two images. This is the one we're currently working on over here, and this is the one that I had done previously. So we're coming along pretty good. Might up the highlights just a bit to brighten it a little bit more. And of course, you also have the ability to do individual colors. So for example, let's say that I did the saturation and I've got way too much green and I don't want the green to be as vibrant in color. I could go back up here to saturation. I could back the saturation off. And now this is where it gets interesting. If I click this little guy here, let me expand the photo a little bit. And I click on this, I can then drag over a color on here and increase the saturation. You see that's the orange and yellow sliders are moving over here. Move them up a little bit more. And now if we back out on the photograph by turning this off and then backing out, you can see that the oranges have gotten brighter and we haven't done anything with the greens. So that orange-yellow pairing there, more orange than yellow, but that has got more color than it had before. Now we can go here and we can turn this off. We can back off the saturation. And we can see that we've got a little bit more highlighted color. So let's turn this back on so we can see the color itself pop back up. And certain aspects of the photo have now gotten a little brighter. Now if we go back to the saturation, we put it back up a little bit higher. There's your fall colors. The important thing is to make sure that you don't make it so bright that you get rid of the details. So let's go look at the library of photos that I've got here. And see what else we've got that we can use that'll make a good comparison photo. See if I have any close-ups in this batch. Okay, these are kind of close, so let's take a look at this. Interesting. It's a focusing problem shooting through a window, unfortunately. And let's see. There was another one back here that had some beautiful oranges to it. Looked very fiery. There we go. Now let's take a look at this one. You'll notice I did a double shot, so we'll have a good comparison, one that we can go to. Again, as we did before, I could have created a virtual copy of it so that I had a comparison shot. So let me do that because this kind of jumps and I don't want it to jump too much on us while we're looking at it. So again, we could go here, pick a leaf and increase the saturation. Let's up the contrast. And you can see the change immediately as I up the contrast. And how much more detail pops out of the image with contrast. Going to increase the vibrance. Again, I don't want to lose the detail that I have in these leaves. And if you go too high, you see how it kind of washes out that detail because there's so much saturation in there. So let's back that down. Vibrance, again, is not going to do much for us at this point because we've already got the saturation up. So we can set that back to 0. I have some wonderful details in here. And I think that's looking pretty good. So we'll pop out of library, grab the before and after shot here, go into the XY so we can see them side by side. There's our before. Here's our after. Zoom in here. Wait for that to render. And you can see that we've still got all of the detail that we had in the other image. But now we have the colors brought out. And sometimes, especially when it comes to fall colors, we may not have a lot of say in what the days are going to look like. This was an extremely overcast, cloudy day. And if you have seen the video on F, You can see that we've got some bokeh because of the distance. This is a 270 millimeter that the lens was at an f8 in ISO 800. So if anybody's interested and they're looking at the F video, take that down. F8, 270 millimeters. And you can see that we've got some out of focus here, which is what we wanted. The goal of this was this tree, and to get these leaves nice and sharp. And with the f8, it gave me that nice depth of field that I could do that and even get what looks like an insect up here on the leaf. But to give you an idea of what the day looked like, this is what the day was like. This is the exact same spot. This is a backdrop to the picture that you just saw. And it was just a really overcast, kind of crappy day. With a couple of birds just hanging out here in the tree. But that is how you can use saturation and how you can use the other areas on here in the color graph to get it to look the way you want. Now we can take this other image here, and we talked about presets, and I said that I used the presets from Froknow's Photo. So we'll go up here and we will find Skittles. And Skittles does a pretty good job of getting me close to where I want to go. It has a lot of extra settings in here. But the big one that I would change out is that contrast. Now, contrast in this case is going to look pretty good. Contrast doesn't always look good on a person. Just like if you were sharpening an image for an individual. Typically, for a man, you're going to sharpen that image down so you can see the stubble on their face. When you're doing a woman's portrait, you usually don't do quite so much sharpening on a woman. It's usually a little bit softer. You'll notice that some of the photographers online will have things about using soft boxes and soft light when they're doing portrait photography, usually just for a woman, not necessarily on a man. Well, when you're talking bodybuilding, that softening that portrait photographers do on a woman hides the detail and the definition. And the starker the light, the better for pulling out those details and pulling out that contrast without losing the detail that a softer light would give you. And that depth of field that I talked about earlier this week is necessary to get right so that you make sure that the entire body is sharp. You get all the details, you get all that definition that everybody worked so hard to accomplish. So that's what I got for you this week. Next week we'll see where our next video is going to go. I think we're going to go back into bodybuilding and grab some more images to go through of what it looks like in the stock photography world at this point. So thank you for being here and have a great night.